Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James, and welcome back to our 2D fighter development prototype that we've been working on in the past two live streams here for the last 2 weeks. We're going to do another live stream here tonight. Hopefully we're going to finish off our little bit of work on this prototype. As we discussed in our previous streams, this is just a prototype, so it's lots of work in progress. Nothing's finalized, but we're getting the understanding and the basics behind all the principles involved in making this simple little fighting game. Hi to everybody, Albert and Balzani and Evangelist Brown. How are you all doing tonight? There should be an overlay in the bottom corner of the screen that shows the chat from people as it comes in. So hopefully that'll be a bit more sensible, and for people watching back on the video afterwards, you can actually see the comments that people I'm replying to. Hopefully it makes a bit more sense. So in our little prototype here, so far what we've got going is we have, if I press play here, we have our little guy. You can walk back and forward. We can do various punches with different buttons, and we can also do some combos to uppercut like that. We had another way to do the uppercut. If we do right knee like that, yeah, there we go. So we had two different ways of doing the uppercut. We had it by going through working in code, and we had it working with the animator. So if we do this right knee and then right punch, we do an uppercut. So right knee, and then if I do it quick enough, like that, we do that cool little combo. But then also if we do left punch and right punch quick enough, we do left punch right punch combo like that, and that's done through code. So that's all fine and dandy, and we have our little health bars for our player and our enemy here. So what we're going to focus on for this next segment is making this enemy fight back against us. And maybe we might make it so that our player, when they get hit, maybe it interrupts and they can't move, but I'm not too worried whether we get that done or not. All we want to focus on is making a simple little AI enemy that can attack us. So first thing to do that, we're going to have to obviously create the enemy that we're going to use. I'm also going to just open up our script in Visual Studio here. Let that load up while it's going. Go back in here. Okay, so at the moment we just have our enemy bot over here, which is fine and dandy. But what we want to do is, basically what I'm going to do is take the player and just copy him and make a reverse evil robot version of him. So if I was to I'm going to move you down here out of the way and just deactivate that enemy for the moment. Then I'm going to duplicate our player and drag him over to here. Then I'm going to replace all his components with different pieces. As usual with our streams, of course, if you have any questions along the way, or you have anything to ask, feel free to ask away, and I'll answer as best as I possibly can. Let's go ahead and unravel all these pieces here so we can drop in the right pieces in the right places. So we've got our body. We're on our body here, so we need to drop that into the slot there to replace that. We need to go down through all the pieces one by one and put the right components in the right places. Oh, our enemy bot head is a little bit off, so I need to make sure that the centers of these things lines up with the centers on our various parts of our robot here. So I need to actually go into, if we look, we can see the center points are moved around. They're not just into the direct middle of our objects. So let's go into our enemy bot here and go into the editor. So his head obviously should connect to the bottom of his head. Move all these pieces around. That one's kind of okay there. That's actually, I think that's okay where it was, because that's only going to stay attached. But I'll have to look and see was the same in the player. Our body and our body should be okay. Our legs, however, will be up like that, and then our lower legs will be up like this, and then finally our feet will be over like this. And again, I'm not too worried about this actually looking perfect or anything like this. as we discussed, it's a prototype, so really everything doesn't necessarily need to be perfectly placed and perfectly jankiness free. It's allowed to be a little bit rough in places. Okay, so we got that. Now let's go ahead and continue dropping these things in. I'm only really making this a different player just to make it a little bit more obvious. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. Left arm lower would be one of these, doesn't really matter. No, I feel like that was not the right piece. No, there we go. This is the right piece. So how is everybody doing in the world of the internet today? As we drag and drop these pieces in. I hope you're all... Oh, no, that was wrong. I have to actually click off on the various parts first. So this kind of dragging and dropping of things is the tedious nature of game development. Let me know if the stream quality is okay, if there's any problems at all. Lower body, where are you? There you are. So as I said, yeah, this is the boring part of game development that you don't see, is like, oh, click and drag all these various bits in. Even if I was making a normal tutorial, I would probably skip through this bit and say, just go ahead and replace all the pieces, and then I'd cut to it being done. Because obviously it's not the most exciting thing in the world to look at, but it's good to go through it. Because as we said, these whole live streams are a bit of a different process than what we normally do on the channel. Get to his knee. Like bam and bam. Now, looking at these sprite sheets, now that I look at them again here, they're incredibly inefficient. Like, if I just go and look at it here for a second. So, the arms, they make sense because they're like reflections of each other, so they make sense to be slightly different. But the legs, these pieces are all basically the exact same. There's a slight bit of difference in the shading on them, but there's only a slight bit. So really, there really shouldn't be a reason why you're using two separate pieces to do each part of the leg. But that's okay. This was stuff made over a year ago for Losing Dare Game Jam, which I'll be doing again. Not this weekend coming, but the following weekend. Live streaming over the weekend and making the game, putting it out there and having fun for everybody. John and Aldrin, hello and welcome to the stream. How are you? You're not too late, we only just started. Okay. So yeah, so we've got our little enemy robot here. So if I go ahead and play now, you'll see, hey, he can punch and all this. His body is still getting replaced because of the animations we set up earlier. But I'm not really too worried about that for the moment. But for right now, what I can do is just flip him around on the x-axis. So -1, like so. So that our enemy robot is always facing the player. Then the next thing I want to do is make a script for our enemy robot to be able to attack in the opposite direction, basically. It's going to be basically the exact same script as what we have for the player, but we're going to make a few little changes to it to adapt it for our uses. Slip Purse, Mr. Whisper, Rain, hello. Do you have a daytime game design job? Only working on my own stuff, basically. Working on my own stuff and making wonderful tutorials for awesome people out there in the world. That's what I do for a job. Make games for mobile devices and VR devices. It's very helpful for me. Thanks for doing this too. Cool. It'd be fun to mess around with VR stuff at some point, but I don't have VR headsets, so it's kind of pointless at the moment. It's not really sensible to work with something when you can't have any way of testing it yourself. Hence why there's no even attempt to make VR tutorials on the channel or anything like that. Okay, so we've got that dude. Let's go to our scripts. Then we've got our fighter controller, and then I'm going to create a script for fighter 2, no, fighter AI controller. Yeah, that's fine. Reload them. So we've got fighter AI and we've got fighter controller. Now what I'm going to do is basically just copy all of this, like this, and obviously not the fighter controller bit itself, but I'm just going to copy all of that and then paste it in here. And I'm going to save that, and then we're going to go back into the game, and we're going to get rid of this fighter controller script. Actually, no, we won't get rid of it just yet. What we'll actually do is add the fighter AI script, like the, no, that didn't, why didn't that go? There we go. So we want to set up the same values that we have. So same move speed, same jump force, ground checkpoint. Well, that's got to be this guy here. What is ground? Well, that's the ground. Did you learn a lot in Unity? That's good, Aldrin. That's what I like to hear. I always love to see the games people have made after my tutorials and stuff as well. So I've gotten a few of them recently, actually, some interesting ones. It's cool. It's really cool to see. VR has a limited audience. At the moment, it does. It'll be interesting to see where VR goes in the future. I think in like 3 to 4 years' time, VR will be a much bigger thing. But at the moment, obviously, it's not as huge. But what do I know? Phone games have the market. Yeah, they do indeed. But there's still a huge market for non-phone games. The phone game market is very, very different to the market of the rest of game development, basically. It's a very different thing. Default damage, we'll leave that as 5. Last action doesn't matter. Combo length, set that as 0.12 again. And impact effect. Oh, there's no impact effect set up on this guy? Weird. Let's go and grab from our prefabs. Oh, didn't. There we go. Pop that in there. I don't know why that wasn't carried over there in our fighter. Because our player certainly... Maybe I didn't use that on that script, actually. Maybe I used that actually on the objects themselves, didn't I? Let me just go to the hand, say. Yeah, to do damage. Yeah, there we go. So that's why it's not set up on the player here. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete the fighter controller script. And I'm going to empty this back out again because there's no need to have anything in it. So let's just see it in action. Boom, boom. Now they're mirror images of each other, walking back and forward, locked in this eternal battle forever. Yeah! Doing some dancing, doing some moves, synchronized attacks. Oh, and our little bar here no longer knows who is giving it information because our enemy bot isn't telling them anything anymore. So let's go and set up that slider. This slider here should be placed on, I'm going to call this AI player. Have you done anything with a Connect? Nope. I've never really messed around with Connect either. Connect was a strange thing. A very strange thing. Put my slider into the health controller. There it is. No, I put it in the wrong place then, of course. There we go. And now if we press play. Oh, I had that set up to be 1,000, didn't I? Or 10,000 even. Let's set this back to be 100. So it actually fills up the bar. We got Street Fighter done in just a tiny amount of time. Yep. I mean, it's essentially Street Fighter. I could probably sell this straight away. No, but it is the basics of it. This is where we're starting out with. Now, as I said, we're making this guy into an AI player. If we wanted to make it into a second player, basically all we have to do is just set it up so that like the first player here takes his controls from controller 1. Second player takes his controls for player 2. There's lots of different ways to do that, but that's not what we're looking at here. We're just setting this up as a one-on-one kind of fighting against the computer situation. So we've got our AI. Let's give him some extra things to do. So now that we have this AI, well, we don't want him to be doing any jumping or anything like that, or moving based off input. We want him to do all that stuff by himself. So I'm going to comment out anything to do with movement. So that's our jumping there. If we are jumping or pressing the jump or pressing the up button, sorry. If we are pressing any other buttons to do any punches or anything like that, that's all this stuff here. So that's all gone now. But we're leaving in the functions here that actually do the combinations of stuff. So how are we gonna make this guy do damage and actually attack the player? Well, let's start off by just getting his movement in place. We don't want him to be moving towards the player all the time. We'll set it up so that like there's a bit of delay to his movement. So we'll make him move to, say, within range of the player and then stop moving. And then once he gets to that range, if the player moves away, he'll take a second standing where he is and then start moving again. So let's go ahead and say we're going to create a public float wait to move. We'll create a private, that's a public. I don't know what a public is. We'll create a private float called move wait counter. Mass Marauder, hello and welcome back. How are you tonight? We got our wait to move, we got our move wait counter. So when we start up the fight, we'll set our counter to be equal to our wait to move. So move wait counter equals wait to move. Then we're going to make a countdown. So I'm going to start doing I don't want this line here either. I just realized that's our movements on the x-axis. That's no good to us. I'm going to write all this code I'll leave all the code back up here at the top. So we're going to first of all check if AI should move, and we're going to say if our wait to move is greater than 0, then if it's greater than 0, then we're going to make a countdown. So no, sorry, not wait to move, that's the wrong one. If move wait counter is greater than 0, then move wait counter minus equals time dot delta time. So we're making a countdown. And if that's the case, then basically we want to say the rigid body dot velocity equals vector 2 dot 0, because we don't want them moving around. And then what we'll say is else. So if our move by counter is now less than 0, so we're able to move, our guy is able to keep going. Tornu, hello and welcome to the stream. Just a quick question, is the chat box in the bottom right corner okay? Is it too big? Is it too small? Let me know if I need to adjust it. I can make a little change to it. Looks okay from what I'm looking at though. Okay, so we've got our countdown going. So now we're saying, okay, our player can move, so let's make our enemy move towards the player. So we'll say if transform dot position. So we want to know if our transform dot position is, say, greater than where the player is. So basically, if we're on the right and the player is on the left, then we want to move towards the player. But of course, at the moment, we don't actually know where the player is. So we're going to create a new variable up here. so that we actually know where the player goes. So public, actually not game object, we'll go with player, no, fighter controller is the one attached to our player. So public fighter controller, that we call the player, so that we know what we're referring to. Chat box is fine, it's good, cool. Suited Panda, did I say hello to you, Suited Panda? I think I did, didn't I? If not, hello. I'm very forgetful sometimes. Oh, you were asking me about the Connect. Chat box size is fine. I try to chat less as not to spam it. Oh, don't worry about that. It's fun having a nice conversation. That's what we're here for. That's the whole point of doing these live streams rather than me just recording these videos. Is for the interactions with you all as we go. And hopefully a bit of education too. So we have our reference to the player. So then we can say transform that position.x if that is greater than the player dot position. Oh no, sorry, the player dot transform dot position dot x. Well, hey, if that's the case, then we can actually make him go walking towards the player. So we can say, okay, start moving towards the player. So the rigid body dot velocity equals a new vector2 which obviously needs to be our movement speed, so move speed on the x-axis and on the y-axis, whatever our current rigid body velocity actually is. So that's fine, let's just test that out. Let's just test that this actually works before we go too much further into this. So go to our AI player. We're going to slot our player into the slot here. So player 1 can go in there. Wait to move. We're going to make it wait 2 seconds and then start moving. Fierce Cross, hello. Oh, well, he's going the wrong way, of course, because if he's on the right, if our X position is greater than the player's X position, that means we're on the right, so we want it to be minus move speed. Like that. Let's try this again. Shamit Ahmed, just want to say thanks for everything. You're welcome. Thank you for watching and being involved. So there we go. He starts walking towards the player. Now he's gone too far over past the player. So that's fine. So now we want to check and make sure that he's not too close to the player. So what we're going to add in is a new float. So a new public float that we'll call min distance to player. So this will be the as close as we're letting our enemy walk to the player. Enemy uses moonwalk. It's very efficient. He's got some cool moves, you know. So now we're going to say if the transform position on our AI is greater than the player's transform position plus our minimum distance to the player. So basically we're saying rather than going to exactly where our player is, we want to go to a little bit of a distance before where the player is. So again, we'll save that, go back in here and make sure that that actually works. So minimum distance player, let's just set it to 2 for the moment to see how that looks. It's basically just a matter of tuning that. So there we go, that looks like a good range for him to be in. Maybe a little bit more actually. Let's just set that to be 2.5. I think the wait to move is a little bit long at 2 seconds. I think that's okay, because then he will be close enough. Oh, I'm not actually doing any damage to him. That's not very helpful at all, is it? We'll sort all that out in a bit. For the moment, we're getting this movement system in operation. So that's fine. If we're to the left of the player, then we're walking towards him. But we also want to check if we're on the other side. So we're saying else then if the transform dot position dot x of what we currently are is less than the player dot transform dot position dot x, and we want to take away this time the minimum distance to the player. I don't want to go into there. So now what we're going to do is say, okay, if our player is on the left axis, then we've gone far enough. And what we can do then, obviously we need to set our rigid body velocity to be going in the other direction, like that. Coder21, hello. Welcome to the age of the internet indeed. Want to see the behavior's working moment. I'm confused. So I'm just thinking we want to reset the move weight counter, so well, let's just test out this a little bit first and then I'll talk about what I'm thinking in my head here. So at the moment we got that going, we have our enemy walks to the player, and if we walk up, he follows along with the player now. We don't want him to follow the player exactly specifically like this. But we do want him to follow the player. And just looking at this now, when we go past, when our player goes past the enemy or when our enemy goes past the player, we really want them to turn around to face each other. It's kind of a bit silly if they're just kind of like, whoo, jumping around like crazy. And kind of walking past each other, and then we just end up, hey, I can't punch you because we're facing the wrong way. That's not very helpful for any of us. But at the moment anyway, our enemy is just immediately following us as soon as we move, which isn't what we want. What I said I wanted was if we move away from the player, he waits his wait time again, and then we go on. So what we're going to do is say, okay, if all of this is happening, basically these are two situations. Either our player is too far to the right and we make him move towards the left where the player is, or our enemy is too far to the left and we make him move to the right. Well, that's what these two situations here are covering. Well then, if both of those are not true, well then we must be within range of the player. So in that situation, what we want to say is, okay, our move weight counter should be equal to our weight to move script, or our weight to move value. So basically resets it. So as long as we're within range of the player, our move weight counter is getting set back up to its maximum value. So let's go ahead and test that out. It's important, as I always say, it's important to, when you write a bit of code, test it and make sure it works straight away. So now I can walk away, and the robot takes a little second before he actually comes chasing after me. Okay, so let's actually do this little bit of code to make the player face the opposite way, because at the moment that's not very good. I'm going to create a simple little function. So public void flip, and this will just be transform dot local scale equals a new vector tree, and basically we just say whatever's the current x value, we're just going to multiply it by -1, so it goes to the opposite of what it currently is. James, I just want to say thanks a lot. Your vids taught me to code and make my own YouTube-based YouTube channel. I've already made a few games, and it's all thanks to you. Cool, that's very good, Coder. I'm always glad to see people doing cool new things, especially when they learn stuff. Mr. Always Cheese, hello indeed. Working on my first game in Unity, still learning from the best. Cool. Like I said, I always want to see people's games when they finish making them. So transform dot local scale dot x multiplied by -1, so that it's becoming, if we're facing left, then we're multiplying by -1 and make us be facing right, basically. And we don't want to change the scale on the y or the z axis because we don't want to start messing around with them. Local scale dot z, And basically that's all we want our little bit of flip code to do. And then up here, what we'll say is we're just going to add a little bit of code here and just say if transform.position.x is greater than the player's transform. Oh, no. Actually, what I'm going to do is, rather than making this a separate thing, I'm going to put it in here so that if we're in the situation where our guy isn't able to move for a second, he'll actually, if the player jumps over the enemy, he won't immediately flip around. He'll flip around the wrong way for like a second or so. Actually, no, that could cause problems because he won't actually turn around at all unless the player moves too far away. Okay, we're just giving ourselves extra headaches by doing that, so I won't do that. So I'll just stick with transform.position.x if that's greater than the player's transform.position.x, and our transform.localscale.x is equal no, we'll just say if it's greater than 0, just in case we adjust the size of our player. The guy basically made me pass my college year 1 prototyping class. Cool. That's good to hear. That's one of the best things about the internet these days, is there's so many solutions to all these problems in the game. Will you use coroutines in your game? I don't know. No, probably not on this little prototype. I have no real need for them at the moment. Hi Jim, can you do a racing type game tutorial? We'd really love it. Super Mike, that's something I might actually consider doing next week. It was something I was thinking about, was doing a top-down driving racing, kind of like old school, like Micro Machines or the old GTA or GTA 2, stuff like that. That's something I kind of want to take a look at myself. I've never tried doing it, so I think it's another good topic to do a prototype development where we're building this thing from scratch, something that I've never looked at and maybe you've never looked at too. So transform, especially we're saying if we are over to our position is greater than the player's position, so if we are on the right and our local scale is greater than 0, well that means we're facing right, so hey, we're facing the wrong way, so flip us around. So run our little flip bit of code. And then we want to do the opposite of that, so I'm just going to copy this whole little bit here. So if our x position is less than the player's x position and our local scale is also less than 0, well then do the exact same thing and flip us around again. Oh no, I did Control and F there by accident. Flip like so. Save that, and let's go back in here and test this out then. 2D RPG. Oh, everybody's singing, everybody's 2D fighting. 2D RPG, yes, it will continue eventually. Lots of other things in the works at the moment as well. So, but you can do that, and most importantly, Portalnauts. Yes, indeed, Portalnauts will continue, but just not yet. So jump over. Yay! Now we're facing the right way. Of course, our player is still facing the wrong way. So let's do the exact same bit of code with our player. Only with our player, we're going to make it we're going to make a variable for the enemy rather than the player. But I am going to copy this whole bit of code here, and then on our player, we'll do it after our movement stuff here on the player. We're just going to add that in. Then we're going to create a reference to public fighter AI controller, and we're just going to call that the enemy. You should sing the chat song. No, you don't want to hear me singing. It's okay. So the enemy and the enemy. Oop, if I could spell correctly, that would be a wonder as well. And then let's copy the bit of flip code that we have. To be honest, because the flip function is only one line long, there's not really a necessary reason to have it. We could have just used this line up here, but it's always good to get in the habit of using functions for things that are repeating in different places in your code. Okay, so that should work. So let's just test that out then. Okay. Oh, we didn't set up the enemy on our player here. So let's just click and drag him in there. Boo! Now we're able to jump over each other and turn around and continue the battle as we go. Perfect. That's all fine and dandy. There's got to be a better way to make sure the fighters are always looking at each other. Well, no, there isn't a better way. There's other ways, I'm sure, but there's not really. I don't believe in better ways in coding. Obviously, there's like efficient and inefficient methods for doing things, but this isn't a crazily horrible thing, and it's also a very simple little thing going. But that's another thing actually with prototyping, is that worrying about how efficient your code is in a prototype is the last thing that you should be doing. I've seen that a lot with people who will be coding away on something, and they're like, "Oh no, this is terribly inefficient solution. I need to spend an extra hour working out what's the best way to do this thing." Whereas what you could do is just go with the way you have it there, because in a prototype, like one of the other rules of prototypes is if you use a prototype that will eventually lead to making a full game, don't use any of that prototype code in the game itself. You should always like rewrite your prototype code when you go to actually make your game. So when you're making a prototype, don't waste your time focusing on what's inefficient or efficient. The whole point of a prototype is to test something out and see, does it work, first of all, and second of all, does it feel good to play? Does it feel interesting? Is it something that you would like to actually push further and go into a full game? But anyway, yes, we'll continue on. Does loading effect on every game has a really complex code on it, or just a scene that loads? It's usually just a scene that loads, especially in Unity. Not really too much more than that, unless you're doing like huge open world things where you're loading up multiple different scenes as you get closer to them and stuff like that, and unloading scenes and loading. That gets a little bit more complex, but in general terms, like making any kind of level based game, it's going to be just loading up a scene. It's not going to be anything too complicated. Okay, so where was I? Yes, I flipped the players around, so that's all fine and dandy. We have our guy getting close to the player, and that's all fine and dandy too. What I'm actually going to do is add an extra one here, and say if our player is currently allowed to move. So if our enemy is currently allowed to move, and if the player is up in the air, hey, we're going to jump up in the air to get after him. So I'm going to say if transform dot position dot x, no, not dot x, dot y is less than the player dot transform dot position dot y, and we're going to add it so that we don't want our enemy to jump up as soon as the player jumps up, but if the player is up in the air already, then we'll jump up towards him. I figured that could be an interesting way to do this. So we'll say we're going to add a public float player in air. So how far is the player up in the air, basically? So to do that, we're going to take that away from the player's Y position. So minus player in air, because if you imagine our enemy is at this position here and the player is up in the air at this position, what we want to say is, okay, take away the distance for player in the air, so take it down to say if the player was at 3 on the y-axis and we had our player in air set of 4, so the players jumped up that far, but that actually puts the value that we're working on here below 0, so the enemy won't jump still. So it's not until the player gets far enough up in the air that we'll actually jump. So if this is true, then what we want to do is we also want to make sure that we are on the ground, because we don't want our guy continually jumping up in the air like madness. No, we want to make sure we're on the ground, and then we're going to say, okay, in that case, the rigid body dot velocity is equal to, well, hey, let's just steal this bit of code here that we have to make our player jump. So we'll just paste that whole bit in there, and then we'll save this, go back in and test this out. If it seems stupid but it works, then it isn't stupid. Exactly. So if I jump, oh, he wasn't quite. Oh, we were setting our. We don't want to set our y-axis velocity to be 0. I just realized here. We want to make this a new vector 2. So when our player can't move, we want him on the x-axis not to be able to move. So that's fine. And we want transform, no, not transform, the rigid body dot velocity dot y to be whatever it currently is. So our player is able to jump up in the air, and that's all just fine and dandy. You can keep the game objects from a level to another with don't destroy and load. Yes, indeed, you can, depending on what you want to carry over. You can carry over, say, your UI stuff or your game manager. You might want to keep your game manager active so that you can store how many points you have or something like that. It's a handy little way to do things like that. What's the best way to deal with screen resolution issues? I create lots of games, and when I'm deploying on mobile with different screen resolution, the canvas layout is a mess. Short answer I'll say is yes, it is a mess. The canvas system in Unity is incredibly messy, and if there's a very simple and obvious solution to this, now look, he's following up, but he's of course jumping straight away now because we didn't set our little delay here. But yeah, the canvas stuff is always scaling. Sprite sizes should be always divisible by 2. Yeah, that's for like handling that stuff, but like canvas layout specifically when dealing with different resolutions is it's a horrible pain. One way I found to get around it is to, rather than make them UI elements, so say for example if I look at my canvas here, so we have this canvas here set up to be just it overlays on the screen or whatever. Oop, I didn't mean to turn this not to 2D. So we have this set up to be just overlay onto the screen or whatever. But if you set it up to be within the world space instead, so that, say for example, I'm just going to duplicate this for a moment and then deactivate this. So if we go to our canvas and set it to be world space instead of screen space, well, okay, well, it doesn't help that those objects aren't shrinking down with me. Let me just grab these. Can just shrink down like this, hopefully. Oh God, the worst. Oh no, I should be scaling it down. I was doing the wrong thing. That's why that didn't work there. So if I just scale this down, drag it over here, and zoom in. This, I'll scale it down some more, like so. So basically, depending on what kind of platform you're using, like say if you're using if you're working for mobile, which is going to have a huge variances in screen resolution, as Matt Marauder says, yes, anchors are important for doing that stuff when you're doing it at the full scale, but doing it at this scale, I shrank this down. Now we've got this in this kind of area that we've got going on. If I change the resolution, you can see it gets cut off in places, so that's why you need to allow extra space around your UI elements basically to allow for this kind of stuff. Basically, it's a huge, huge pain in the arse sorting this stuff out, but it is doable. It's just annoying, and it takes a lot of time configuring it and making sure it's all going to work the way you want it to. But anyway, continuing back to this, let's give our AI player, let's say our player has to be already at 2.5 for us to follow him. So now, there you go. He doesn't jump up straight away, but he does follow him and jump up. So perfect. That works for us. I'm happy with that. Next thing I want to do is make it so that we can actually punch our players and punch our enemies, because at the moment our AI player, maybe if I set him to be on player 2 layer, which would make a lot of sense. Everything should be on player 2, shouldn't it? Yeah. There we go. That was what I was missing. I knew I was doing something wrong. So he's punching away and hurting player 1. That's fine. Let's go back to our enemy now. So we've given him the ability to move around and follow after the player. Of course, the only thing he hasn't done now is start throwing punches. So if we're not able to move, that means we're close enough to the player to do some damage, say. So we're going to say that our enemy can do attacks if he's either standing still and no longer moving. So we won't let him attack when he's following after the player, because he'll just be punching at the air at that stage. And we'll also let him do kicks when he's up in the air, I'd say. So let's do that one first. If not is grounded. We'll say if we're not grounded and our move weight counter is greater than 0. So basically, if we're close enough to not be allowed to move, so that means we're close enough to the player, but we're also in the air, well, in that situation, hey, let's do a kick, right? Punches and explosions and damage dealt. Yay! 3 cheers to violence. Why does the blue dude's chest turn red when he walks? I've missed a lot, so I don't know. Oh, yeah, okay. So basically, what's going on there is all we did was replace all the sprites on this guy from our original player. We just copied that over just so all the animations would carry over. But if you remember in the video when we were making the animations, if I go into this guy here, let's go to, say, the walk animation. If we move it along the time, you can see our body changes to the red color, because if we go to body sprite here on the timeline, we set at this point the sprite to be that one, but as he goes further we set it to that one so that it looked like he was walking forward and you could see his back. That's fine, that's all well and good. But obviously it looks a bit weird on this guy when he's walking. So the fix to that, that I don't really want to have to get into here, because it would take a while to go through each animation. I'll just quickly do one of these animations that's broken and weird. What we need to actually do to fix this is go into our project folder, into our animation folder. So this is the controller for player 1, which stores and has all the animations for us. What we need to do is duplicate that and say, okay, it automatically made a player 2. That's pretty handy because that's what we wanted to do. We're going to give this to the AI player here. into his animator. So at the moment, the AI player still has the same controller as player 1. So I'm going to put player 2 into there now. So now he has a separate animation controller, which is still set up all the exact same way, and it'll still function the exact same way. But now that he has a separate player 2, what we want to do also is, okay, our player walk, that's one of our animations that's causing the problem. Let's duplicate that one. And we're going to call this AI player walk. I'm not going to bother trying to change all the text of it. But now what we can do is go to our animator. So this is our animator for the AI player. We want to make sure we have the AI player highlighted. And then in the player walk section here, we're going to change the motion for this one to, instead of being player walk, we'll change that to be the AI player walk. And now if we go into our animations and adjust this animation, so if we go to here and if we go to the body sprite at this position, okay, instead of that being the red body, we want that to be our black body. So I'm just going to drag this animation down the bottom here so we can make some adjustments. So we'll go to our project folder, go to our art, and then make sure that this is the normal body dropped into place there, so you can see that's fine. Then when we get to this point, we want this to be the back of the body, so we'll pop that one there. There you go, you can see it's the right one. And then we'll do the same at the end here just to make sure it goes around the right way again. Pop that in place, and you can see, so now in our walk animation, it's all facing around the right way that we want it to. Again, this being a prototype, I don't want to go through all the animations and fix up any of the other weird issues. That's just a demonstration of how it works and how you would have to fix that problem, basically. Okay, so let's go back to making him attack. So what we want to do is set it so that our enemy has a certain amount of attack frequency. So let's say how fast can he do multiple attacks. So public float weight between strikes, and we'll use a private counter for this as well. So we'll use private float between strike counter. Could be a less violent game if the robots attacked each other with hugs and kisses. I mean, that would be less violent. Spot winner courses enjoying last. That's great to hear, Mr. Mathleo. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Can you make a car suits without wheel colliders? I don't know. That's something I've never tried. So anything is possible. Probably not in the near future at the moment, though. Okay, weight between strikes. So what I'm going to do is add a counter or a countdown for our weight between strikes. So if weight between strikes is greater than 0, then make a countdown. So not weight between strike counter. Sorry, that should be. So if our counter is greater than 0, so between strike counter is greater than 0, well then make it count down by taking away delta time for it. I never did this like that. I always made sprites into child game objects, then I changed the sprite image. Oh, I get what you're saying, Fierce. I mean, that's kind of some of what I've done. I am just changing the sprite image on that. So, like, what I'm changing the sprite there is on the body here of the player, because the body has that sprite attached to it. So that's what I'm changing when I change that in the animation down here. You can see it's body sprite. So we have all these other objects for the various different parts. I could change his right hand to be red when you punch, but who knows. So our between strike counter, if that's above 0, then we make a countdown. So then in this situation, we're going to say if we're grounded and our move weight counter is above 0, so that means we're close enough to hit the player, and also our between strike counter is below 0, which will mean that we're allowed to do a strike. That's basically how we're going to think of that as. Well, in that situation, we know we're in the air, we're doing some cool things. Let's do a cool air kick. So our we do this little function, our kick and air function. I knew we had one of them somewhere. So our kick and air function just checks if we're not grounded, then it sets a trigger to jump kick. That's fine. So let's call that if he's in the air and close enough to hit the player. So we'll save this. What we should also do in this situation is, if that's true, then we're doing our kick in the air, and let's reset our between strike counter, because we're going to say, okay, we can't do multiple attacks really quick. So we'll say between strike counter now is equal to wait between strikes. Okay, save this, go back into the game. So on our AI player, how long are we going to wait between strikes? We'll set that at just half a second for now. Will be nice and simple. Nope, he's supposed to do his little kick. Why isn't he doing a little kick? Okay, at the moment I just realized that, hey, we can stand on top of each other's heads if we want, which would be a little bit silly, but that's okay. Okay, he should be doing a kick there. Let me have a look at what's going on in debug. Our between strike counter is at 0. Yeah, so that's fine. Let's just go over here. Okay, so it's the move weight counter is above 0, so that makes sense. So we are close enough. What's the best way to code the player's movement if the game detects that it's been played on mobile platform? Well, it depends on how you got your control going, your input. If you have a input slider or something to use, or a joystick on the screen, or if you have just various buttons to control your movement, there's no one solution fits all answer to that question, basically. I'm not sure why this isn't working. Let's just check if it's being called and it's not activating for some reason. So debug.log air kick. Let's try this out. Is JavaScript better for mobile? As John says, no, I don't think so. I think C# is what Unity is built in. So when you're working in JavaScript, you're kind of adding an extra layer of abstraction just for your own self, really. It doesn't really affect our console. Well, nothing's happening. Not kicking. Not kicking. Why isn't he kicking? So if we're not grounded and our move counter is above 0, let's take out the move counter bit and see. Oh wait, our between strike counter is not less than 0, less than or equal to 0, of course, because our between strike counter is at 0 at all times when we start the game. So that's probably what's preventing us from actually being able to do this. There we go. See, he's doing his kick now. He got close enough to do the kick there. Yeah. Okay. He's not actually doing damage to the player, but that's okay for the moment. I'm not too worried about that because we have to change some of the damage code that we're actually doing with our hands and stuff. Actually, let's do that before we go any further, because if we can't damage the player, what's the point in doing anything, right? Okay. We've got the basics of the attack routines working now, so it won't actually be too much harder to do what we want to do. So do damage. What we're going to do here is change it so that we're identifying whether we're player 1 or player 2. So we're going to say public bool is player, or we'll say is enemy. So by default that'll be false, so that we don't have to go back and change everything on the original player. So we'll just say, so here we can say if other tag is player, and that actually should be doing damage. Hold on. Our guy here, our left foot, we have the tag player. Maybe it's just that his foot wasn't reaching it. So we won't actually make any changes to this for the moment. We'll just leave it as it is, like that, and we'll come back to it if there is actually a problem being caused. Do you ever try to use boo? Is it easy to understand? I've never tried to use boo, so I honestly don't know. Unity doesn't even give guidelines on its website for boo. It's like all the Unity like library references and stuff like that are all in C# and JavaScript. There is no descriptions of them for boo. So if you try to start using Unity in boo, just stop and just learn how to do it in C#. Basically, it's much easier and much easier to work with. Also, because most of the questions that you ask or answers that you look for when you're looking for answers in Unity online will be in C#. Most people won't be doing it in JavaScript at all. It'll all be, if someone has a solution if you have a problem, 99% of the time someone else has had that problem on the internet and someone else has solved it for you already. So when you go to look up that problem and you just find an answer and you're like, oh yes, I found the answer. Oh no, the person who did this answer did it in C#. I've been working in JavaScript or boo, so I still don't know what the answer is. You probably have an idea from the code, but you still need to work out how to convert it from C# to JavaScript. That's not very useful. C# is basically the primary language of Unity. If you're not using C#, you should probably try and use C#. There's not much difference if you are using JavaScript, but it just makes things easier. Neko, hello. How are you? Just came in. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. Thank you for coming by and saying hello. Rickard, hello again. How are you? Will you make the enemy robot choose a random attack once the dropkick is fully working? Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with the dropkick. I don't know why he's not damaging the player. So what we're going to do is make him pick some random strikes to do. So if our between strikes counter is less than or equal to 0 and our move weight counter is greater than 0, so we're close to the player and we're touching against the player, well then in that situation, hey, let's do a punch. If our counter is down low enough that we need to do a punch and we're close enough to be able to hit the player, well then let's actually do something. So to do what we want to do, we have at the moment 4 different attacks that our guy can do. We have a left punch, a right punch, a left leg, and a right leg. That's our 4 different things here: left hand, left foot, right foot. So let's do one of them. Let's randomly pick one of them to do. So what we're going to do is create an int that we'll call move choice. Move choice equals random.range between 1 and 4. That's it. We're picking a number between 1 and 4, and we're going to create a switch. So we're going to say switch based on whatever the move choice value is. So switch move choice, and we're going to say case 1. I never remember the syntax for switches for some reason. I'm going to hope I'm getting it right. But we'll say in case 1, hey, do our left hand, and then break. In case 2, so where our situation is 2, do right hand, and then break. Case 3, we'll do our left foot, and break. And then case 4, we'll do our right foot, and then break. Oh, I did something wrong there. Oh, I pressed 0 for some reason instead of bracket. There we go. How can you slow down all the objects on your game? Is it doable using time.timescale? Yeah, you can just do time.timescale equals 0.1 or something, and it'll make everything go super duper slow, but it'll make all the movements and everything go super slow as well, of course. So that's all fine and dandy. So let's just test this out. Actually, one other thing we need to do is say, okay, if we're choosing to do a strike of some kind, well, hey, we better set our strike counter back up to be in max. So between strike counter is equal to what's it called? Weight between strikes? Yeah, weight between strikes. There we go. Like so. So let's go back in the game and test this out. Don't forget default. I'm not too worried about default because kicking like a maniac. Yeah. Okay, let's adjust the wait time between punches because he was going like a maniac there. Wait between strikes 0.5. Let's set it to be 2 because I don't know if he was waiting 0.5 there at all. Okay, he was. Yeah. Hey, he's doing it. Okay, so I don't know why the dropkick wasn't doing damage. I think maybe it just wasn't connecting. So, I'm not too worried about that. What's the main purpose of using instance on your script? I just use it to access variables and functions from another script. I'm not too sure, I'll be honest with you. It depends on what context you're using it in again. Okay, so our enemy II is set up there now. His difficulty is basically now how many strikes can you do in a row. What we could do I mean, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the extent of it. He exploded when I beat him up. Again, it requires a lot more polishing. He gets close and he doesn't move. You need to adjust those ranges and stuff like that. How long he can wait between punches and things like that. You might want to make that a bit more dynamic. So we have our between strike counter. Let's give him, say, the ability to combo some moves, right? So we'll create a public int combo length. Why is that? Oh, I already had a combo length, that's why. Did I actually use that for anything? Oh. Combo count. Okay. Using that for something else in the player script, of course, which was for using our combos. So let's, rather than mess around with changing that, let's just change this here. How would you make defense? I mean, effectively, that would just be another animation and just checking to see if our movement is going away from the enemy. Switch off the player's collider, maybe? Yeah, you could be switching. Well, you don't want to switch off the collider because then he'll fall down to the ground. Let me just do this simple little combo thing, and then we'll come back and look at doing some simple defense. So I'm just saying public int. Let's call it max combo length. Max combo size, actually. Private int current combo. So how many combos we can do, and then we're going to add a public float for how quickly we can do strikes in a combo. So it'll be combo strike. Actually, we'll call this wait between combo strikes, and that should be fine. So how do we do this? So say we're imagining our max combo size is 3. So what we're messing with here now will be this value here, basically. So basically we're saying, okay, so we do a punch, and we say if current combo is less than max combo size. So we're saying, say if this is our first punch, then hey, we're starting out with our current combo being 0. In that situation, our current combo is less than our max combo size. Well, in that situation, what we'll say is, okay, we're going to set our between strike counter to be equal to combo, wait between combo strikes, which will set that to be slower, or like a smaller value than wait between strikes. What's the best way to duplicate an object prefab and change its animation? Because when I'm doing it, the original prefab changes also. Yes, as Mass Marauder says, you need to duplicate the animator. So in the file hierarchy here, go into our animations folder. As I said when I was changing the sprite on the body of the guy, we need to duplicate that animator, which is the player 1's and now player 2, and then assign that into the second object. That's the thing you need to do. Okay, so yes, we got our between strike counter, and now we're going to set it to be wait between combo strikes, and we're also going to say, okay, add 1 to our combo. So current combo plus plus, so it adds 1 onto it. Else, so basically in the situation where our current combo is the same size as our max combo size, well, hey, in that situation, that means we've reached the end of our speedy combo. So we're going to set our between strike counter to be the longer wait, and we'll set current combo back to be 0. I think that should make sense. That should be what we're doing here. So now I'm going to hit play. I don't know why I destroyed him really quickly there. That's not going to tell us any information. So let's go back to our AI guy. Yeah, so max combo size, I'm going to set that to be 3. Wait between strikes, I'm going to leave that at, I'm going to put that actually up to 2. And wait between combo to 0.5. So let's see how this goes. How quickly does he attack? So now he counts down from 2, and then he gets time to do although we said it's a 3, it's actually doing 4 attacks because it's starting at 0. Actually, so let's say current combo by default will be equal to 1, and when we're resetting it, we're setting it back to 1. So that way we're actually keeping track more accurately of what our max combo size actually is. So we're going to play. Boo boo boo. So I moved away and he was still in the middle of his combo there. So what I'm going to say here is, if our away counter is greater than 0, that's fine. But if we're doing this thing where we're making our player move after the player himself, well, in that situation, hey, we want to make sure that our combo is always set back to being 0. So current combo equals 0. And we'll set it here as well where we're moving. So, oh, no, I spelled that wrong. Current combo equals 0, like so. Our move away counter, we shouldn't. Should we set that? He does a little punch at the start, which I don't really like. So I'm just going to comment that out. So guess what? He's going to start moving as soon as the fight starts, basically. What's the difference of awake from start? Awake begins before start. No, the difference is that so in the start function only happens when a scene first starts, or when an object is first loaded into the game. So yeah, just imagine either when you start your scene or you load an object into the game, the start function will run straight away as soon as that happens. Awake, however, will happen basically as soon as the scene is activated or the object is activated. So what that means is, if you were to say you had a clock counting down from 60 to 0. If you had it counting down, and you had it in the start function being set to be 60 straight away at the start level. Okay, so that'd be fine. You'd start your game and the thing will start counting down to 0, and that'd be grand. If you wanted to reset that back up to being full, what you'd have to do is have another function to reset it back up to full every time, or have to do something to reset it back up to full. But if you told it in the awake function to set to 60, all you'd have to do is deactivate the object and reactivate it, because awake runs every time an object is activated in the scene. So basically, if I got this AI player here, for instance, I just made him deactivated and activated him again, well, that would set that value back up to being 60 all over again. So basically, awake runs every time an object is turned off and on, whereas start will only run the very first time they come into the game. So me activating and deactivating this guy wouldn't make any difference, basically. If you want to initialize variables and start functions, do it in start, don't do it in awake. So we have our combos going. That's actually, yeah, we actually wanted to play and see him moving straight away. What we'll do, actually, I don't like him moving straight away, so I'm just going to say public float wait to move, wait to start move, because I think I had wait to move as a thing already, and I'm just going to add it in here to say at the start, if wait to start move is greater than 0, make it count down. So wait to start move minus equals time.delta time. Otherwise, do everything else in this whole update function. Kablamo. Away could be used for a sliding door that opens automatically when a player gets close. Yes, that's a perfect example. You wake up whatever opens the object whenever the player gets near it, and keep it going that way, basically. Yes, that would be one good example of it. Awake is preferred for triggering. Not necessarily. It's just has different uses for different situations. I want to give him 2 seconds to wait to start moving. Yeah, look at me go. Maybe we won't make him fly up in the air like that. So we'll actually put this whole bit of code here after we're checking if we're already grounded. Oh, jeez. I didn't put the right stuff in. We'll put it in here like that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, let's go back in. Let's see this guy going. Use both C# and JavaScript on a single game. You can, but you're going to create problems if you want to interact with them in your own code. Oh, I've been destroyed. Well, there we go. So now he's able to do quick little combos like that, but he's also able to do he's able to wait for a couple of seconds between those quick little flurries of combos. Now, if you're going to adapt this game into a more fully featured thing, you probably want him to be able to do specific combos. You want him to be able to do different lengths of combos and things like that. So that's where you'd want to look into doing that in code probably, and adjusting the current combo and the max combo size kind of on the fly and randomizing that a little bit. But of course, I'm not going to jump into doing that at the moment. So what was there was something else we discussed. Taking a look at doing defending. Yes. Let's create a quick little defense animation for this guy. Actually, we'll create it for the player because it makes sense that our player should be defending. Animations. There we go. Create a new animation. Player defend. We're just going to have this be just his arms go up. Where's our player? Left arm. Boop. No, wait. Turn on the animations maybe would be a good idea. Okay, no, that's not the right one. We want his arms to go like this. And his right arm will do basically the same thing. We'll pull it up to here. Oh god. Some of these arm stuff is kind of funny really. What we'll actually do is make his left arm flip around. Nope. Not on the x-axis. Nope, not on the y-axis. Nope, not on the z-axis either. Okay, yeah, it is on the x-axis that we want. Woo! No, that isn't what we want to do actually. Yeah, we'll just leave it at this. So he's kind of just raising his hands up like that. How do you remove a child outside his parent? Because before destroying an object which has a child, I want a child to be transferred outside his parent to prevent an error. All you do is say whatever that object is that you don't want it to have a parent anymore, you just say transform.parent equals null, and that'll make it pop out of that sequence and it'll be its own standalone object. So transform.parent equals null. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. Okay, so we've got our defender animation. Let's give our player the ability to do that. So at the moment we have whatever input we do is sent to the rigid body.velocity, and that's fine. But really what we want to do is something a little bit different. So I'm going to add down below this, we're just going to say if if transform dot position dot x is less than the enemy dot transform dot position dot x. Well, if that's true, and also I forgot to do the important thing, also input dot get, oh, I didn't say and input dot get axis raw horizontal no, we'll just say if, for the moment, we'll just say if our position is less than the enemy's position. Then in here we'll say if input.getAxis raw horizontal, if horizontal, if that is less than 0. So basically if we're pressing left and the enemy is on the right, well, in that situation we want to activate the defending animation, and to do that we're going to use we'll add a trigger. So anim dot set trigger, we'll do a trigger called, no, actually we'll use a bool. We'll call it defending. Set bool defending. Oh, and we actually wanted to set it to be true. So if we're pressing left, we're setting defending to be true. If we're pressing any other value, so if our horizontal axis is either 0, so we're not pressing anything, or greater than 0, which means we're pressing right, well, in that situation we want to set our defending to be false. Defending is false, and we also want to get our movement in. So we're allowing the player to move to the right if the enemy's face is to the right of us. So that's all fine and dandy. Then we need to do the exact opposite of that. So we're just going to copy that whole bit of code like so. I'm going to change some of the values. So if our position is greater than the enemy, and then in that situation if our input is to the right, our input is greater than 0, meaning we're moving to the right, that means we're moving away from the player and we should be defending. Otherwise we'll go move to the left. So I'm going to comment out that bit of code that was controlling our movement. What's going on here? Oh, we didn't put our semicolon at the end of the line like so. Let's go in here, and on the animator for our player, make sure we're on player 1. We're going to grab our new defending animation, which moved all the way down to bottom, which is one of the annoying things about animators in general. We're going to say actually I'm going to do one more thing to catch here and say if we're not grounded. So if not is grounded, then our input can go either way. We're not trying to defend. So in that situation then we'll use this line here like that. Okay, so let's set up this defend. So defend, basically if we're on the ground and oh, what's going on here? Parameters, there we go. I don't know what happened there. They all disappeared for a second. So we're just going to add a bool down here for defending like so. And we'll just say if defending is true, and oh no, we don't need to do anything else. We don't need to say if grounded is true, because if we're player idle, we already know we're on the ground. So this transition shouldn't have any exit time or transition duration or anything like that. We should just go instantly to it, and we'll transition back like this, blah blah blah. So when we're transitioning back, that should be when defending is false. Okay, let's just make sure that this is going to work for us first. What's going on here now? Why are we in the defending animation? When I press the defend button, we're going back to normal animation. We want to come out of defending to jumping as well. We want to make sure that happens. If is grounded is false, then we go to that. But what is going on with our animation? Why is it by default going to the defending animation? That should not be the case. Let's hit play again here. He's I'm gonna one other thing I need to fix. I don't like obviously our enemy doing that crazy thing back up there, so gonna delete you and put you there so that our animation stuff is triggered no matter what we're doing. Working on a problem for almost a month because I don't find any solution. Well, I'm glad I could help, Super Mike. $30 late, never mind the semicolon. Yeah, I eventually caught it. I caught that semicolon. Just to make sure that enemy guy is working. Why is he defending? He shouldn't have that. He shouldn't have that at all. What? He has the player 2 controller, which is what I'm looking at here. That doesn't even have the defending animation in it. Somehow I feel like the default animation is getting messed up. Yeah. Somehow the player idle animation has gone to holding the arms up rather than the actual animation we were trying to work on, which is a little bit annoying. So I'm just going to fix that by deleting these lines because there shouldn't be anything going on in our player idle animation. Let's go back to player 1. Player defend. I didn't set anything up in that animation for some reason. Somehow that makes sense. That I don't understand. Okay, let's fix these animations then. Bend these arms up and stuff. Right arm up like this. Left arm, we'll peel this up here. I don't understand why that happened. Anywho. Okay, now we can defend. Of course, at the moment it doesn't actually do anything. But what we could do is, so where is on our project, go to scripts, our health controller. So what we can do is say we're going to add a bool. So a public bool for is defending, like so. And we're going to say down here where we're taking away whatever damage we're inflicting. Here we're going to say if damage to take, oh no, sorry, not damage to take. If is defending is true, then we're going to say current health minus equals 1, because we don't want our players to be invincible while they're defending. They're going to take a tiny little bit of damage. Otherwise, then if we're not defending, then we'll take the full amount of damage. So here we'll say like that. One of the things that's very common in fighting games is that you can't win a fight by attacking someone when they're defending. If they're defending, then they can't be killed, basically. So you have to wait for them to lose their defense and then they won't die. So if that's the situation, if that's the situation, let's add that in here. We're just going to add an if is defending. Actually, no, sorry. We'll just say within the check for if the current health is below 0. Well, if that's the case, then we'll say no, sorry, we won't do it. Will we do it here? Yeah. We really shouldn't do this check up here. We should actually really do that in the take damage function. Because why when we're taking damage, we know whether we're going below 0 or not. So here we're saying if our current health goes below 0, if we're defending at the time being, well, in that situation, then current health should be equal to 1. So we'll always have a little bit of health. If we're not defending, well, okay, then in that situation, our player should take the damage that's been given to them and they should be dead, and we'll deactivate them. Okay, so now we're setting it up so that we're able to just take a tiny bit of damage when they're defending in our health controller. So let's actually make that work from our fighter controller script. So here we'll go into our fighter controller, and surely we have a reference to that already, do we? No, we don't. Okay, I thought we would, but public health controller equals, oh no, not equals anything. Public health controller, we'll just call the health. So what we'll do is when we're defending, so when we're setting our animation bool to be true, well then at the exact same time we're going to say on the health dot is defending, nope, not is actually enabled, dot is defending equals true, like that. And in the situation where we're setting our animation to be false and we're allowing our player to move, well then the health dot is defending equals false. That's all we want to do. So let's just copy the same lines for the same situation down below for when we're moving the other direction. And that should be all we need to play the game. We haven't set that up properly. So on our player health controller should be attached to the same object, isn't it? Yep, we just drag that into place there. Let's try this again. So now I'm going to defend, and as you can see, now that I'm defending, our enemy can't do as much damage to us. So perfect. He's doing random attacks, random kicks and punches and stuff like that. This is basically our full fight system in action. Haha, I'm jumping over you. There's little weird things like the fact that I'm able to balance on his head, of course. But they're just stuff that you'd need to refine, obviously, in making a full game. But for the moment, I'm quite happy with this very simple prototype. I'm happy that we've got the basics idea of a simple little 2D fighting game working. I'm pretty happy with this. I have some things that I want to do with this personally and take it further and make it more into a functional thing. But for the moment, I'm happy with this. I like it, and it's pretty cool. So this is going to be the last live stream on this specific game, but I will be doing another live stream next week and coming back for more. I'm really enjoying doing this. It's fun having some interaction with you all out there. It's a couple of things there. Let me just scroll back up to the chat here. The boon animation is kind of buggy. If you do a 2D tutorial, I couldn't get it working. It should work. Usually it works. How can you prevent your game from copyright infringement when you use copyrighted music accidentally? Is crediting the original artist works? No, that doesn't. If you use copyrighted music, you have to pay for a license to use it. You can't accidentally use copyrighted stuff. If you use something else, if you use something that someone else has created, unless you have a license to use it, you can't use it at all. There's lots of open source places that allow you to use their stuff for free. Lots of assets. Most of the assets that I use in my courses, you're free to use in any of your own games. But you always need to make sure that you have the approval of the person to be allowed to use your stuff, basically. So don't use copyrighted material in your projects at all, if possible. But yes, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will be back next week with some more live streaming goodness, where I'll be making another game prototype of a different kind. These game prototypes they're interesting and fun to do because we're not I'm not showing you a finished tutorial product. Tutorials that I do obviously are a little bit more refined. There's not as much time of me just sitting there for a few seconds trying to think of what to do next and how to work something out. It's all obviously worked out beforehand. But these are interesting because I think it provides a different kind of view of how this stuff all works. But yeah, I'm going to wrap up this stream. Next week I'll be back with another prototype. I won't talk about what that is just yet because secretly I'm not sure. I do have a couple of different things I want to do though. But I will be back with more videos later this week. There'll be some more gameplay videos going up on the channel. Hopefully we'll be starting some new tutorials in the next week or two, if all goes according to plan, but no promises. And of course, on the weekend of what date are we in now? The weekend of the 21st to the 23rd of this month, I'll be taking part in Ludum Dare. So I'll be streaming most of the weekend, I'd say, which is going to be fun. Making a game in 48 hours, probably, rather than 72 hours, I'd say this time, and having a bit of fun while we go, and taking suggestions from all of you to see what game we can make together. So yeah, thanks for watching this stream, and I will be back in the very near future with some more gaming goodness. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Goodbye.